Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. And today we're going to talk about math and spades, which is a game that I am fond of, and I've had a lot of experience with it over the years, and mostly positive memories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the objectives, the basic rules, how there may be variations, things along those lines, and just kind of go from there, and talk about my experiences with the game over the years. Um, so let's get started. Okay, so when it comes to spades, the idea is it's a game where you're taking tricks and you're making bids. Um, that's the big thing, right? Like, so now how does that go, right? So the idea is like you could have a standard card deck, like 52 cards, or you could go with 54. Me personally, I don't like using 54 cards, and I'm gonna focus on standard deck. So with that in mind, you have the 52 cards. You could have two or more players. It's really common to have four players, and it's also really common to have those four players have partnerships. Like so, it's like four players, two teams. So you have 13 cards each in that case, right? And the idea is, you're looking at your cards and you're making a bid. So how does that work, right? So the idea is like each hand, you're playing a card, like someone leads with a suit when it's their turn. You follow suit if you have the card in their suit. So like if someone leads with a diamond, you lead. Oh, sorry, you follow with a diamond unless you don't have it anymore. But we'll get to that in a little bit too. And so the person with the highest card wins. So like if you have diamonds, someone plays a two, someone plays a four, someone plays a six, someone plays an eight. The person with the eight wins, and they take a trick. And if someone doesn't have a diamond, they can play a card from another suit. But like if you were like if someone like led with diamonds, like I was saying before, and you were to throw like clubs, for instance, then whoever is the highest diamond would take that. The suit that has the highest value are spades, and there's rules and like when you can bring those out. But for a lot of people, it's like you're not gonna use a spade on your first turn unless that's literally all you have. And then like for a lot of people, it's just like, hey, no one can use spades until you break spades, right? Um, so there's that, right? Um, and then the idea is like, so you have that, and you all are playing around, and so to add to it, right? You have your four suits, spades, diamonds, clubs, and hearts, and everything else is like pretty even. Like I was saying, the one with the highest values is like the spades, right? It's the only one that's like gonna cut through everything. Um, and so let's talk about the bidding. So at the each, you know, set of rounds, right? Like so you're playing like several hands, and you're going until you run out, right? And the idea is you can play for a certain amount of points. For a lot of people, it's 500. And so it's like, well, how do you get to that 500? So if you're looking at your hand and, you know, just for more context, the order is like, you have ace, king, queen, jack, and then, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And so you're looking at that. You're looking at your suits. You're looking at the values for your cards, how many spades you have, and all that. And you're putting forth the amount of rounds that you think that you can win, and that's what you're thinking of as the trick. It's like, hey, I think if I win around, that's my trick, right? So you might have a not so great hand, so you might be like, oh, well, I think I could take three, um, and then if you were to get the three, for instance, then that's 30 points. And with partnership spades, like a lot of times, you're going with the combined value so of your teammates. So like if you say you can get three, right, and they say they can get five, then you're going for eight, and you're gonna try to get that, and you can get 80 points, right? And so that's like some of the basics, and then like going further with that, um, if you do not meet your bid, right? Like, so if you're going for eight and you get like seven, for instance, even though it's really close, you'll lose that 80 points instead of gaining 80 points. And you can't get into the negative values. And so, as far as like the scales go, for a lot of people, 500 is the max to win, and negative 200 is like the lowest you can get with losing. And things can always vary with this. In any case, right? So you're making a bid, often with your partner in this like four-person game of spades, right? And then like, what happens if you go over your bid, right? That's the idea of getting bags. And so, like, if you were saying, like, oh, well, I want to bet six, but I get seven. So you'll get the 60 points, but then you'll get one bag. Get up to 10 bags, and you typically would lose 100 points if you're not careful. But some people might have strategies where they're at least expecting to take some bags, right? And then there's the idea of going nil, betting zero. So your cards may be atrocious, and it's like you might be like, okay, I don't think I take anything, and then if you do in fact take nothing, you gain 100 points. But if you take one, for instance, just one, then yeah, it's gonna do some damage to your count for sure. Because right, you could like lose 100, for instance. Um, and then if you were to lose that, you could be petty about it, right? Because you could be like, oh, well, I guess I'm taking cards and trying to take away from other opponents' bids. Um, but so with Nilvo, right? Like if you have that idea of a partnership, then your partner can cover you, right? Or try their best, right? Because your opponents might be trying to get their stuff while also trying to stick you. Um, so if you're playing with a good partner, they'll cover you while trying to get their bid. Or if it comes down to it, just make sure they cover you because that nil is going to be worth more than whatever their bid is typically, right? And then there's the idea of blind nil. With blind nil, for some people you could play it right out. For some people you need to be like 100 points behind. It depends on who you're playing with and what their rules are. But the idea with blind nil is that like you're not even looking at your card to make that informed decision of going nil. You're just saying, okay, I don't plan on taking any cards. So you go blind nil, and it's a huge risk because it's like you're out 200 points if you take a card, but if you win it, you get 200 points. And what's cool about it is like, so you make that bid, right? And for a lot of people, like you can exchange two cards with your teammate, and so that makes it better and more feasible. And then they'll try their best to cover you while other people are trying to like stick you. And so the idea is like, those are like the basic rules. There are variants, like I was saying, but that's the idea. So focusing in on playing with four people, partnership style. And with a standard deck, the idea is you have like 13 rounds because you all each have 13 cards, and you're trying to win each round. You're trying to get your tricks, and there are situations like with nil and blind nil where you're trying to not take any tricks. There are situations where like people who go double nil or double blind nil, but there are specifications for that depending on who you're playing with, and it's like high risk, high reward, right? But yeah, so the big idea is like, yeah, you're trying to win rounds, you're trying to get your bid, and the person who has the highest card of a suit wins. And if someone doesn't have that suit anymore, they can cut with spades, and you have to be strategic. And you don't see your opponent's hands, so when you're all making your bids, you are seeing what everyone is making, and so you have an informed decision how it's going to play out. And so there's this back and forth, and there's just like it's something that's inherently mathematical, right? Um, there's math and the rules, math and the objectives, math and the calculations that you're doing, the scorekeeping, the strategy. And then, you might not think about it, but there's math in the cards themselves. And not just because, you're dealing with a deck, those decks have numbers and, things are broken down that way. But you also have the shape of the cards, the shapes on the cards, the designs, the patterns, all of that is math. at the end of the day, which we don't always talk about, right? But you're dealing with shapes, you're dealing with patterns, right? It's math. Um, and that's the crazy thing about math, right? It's everywhere and everything. And in the case of spades, it can be good to pass the time. And I guess like for some people, they might put some money on it, or just like bet something in general. And now, as far as my personal experience goes with it, uh, yeah, I used to play it a lot growing up. Played it with family members. Played it in school, up okay to 12 when the opportunity presented itself, but also in college. And I can say, like, not only is it cool because it's like math and action, but you can see some things from some people when you play. You get a little bit more information about their personalities. Not everything, but you can see some things bleed through, with how they play. So I think that's interesting. I think that's fascinating. And I had fun. Like, oftentimes, given that it's me, I would bid pretty practically and try to get what I said. But then, like, other times, I'd mess around, get a little risky with it, have some fun with that too. But yeah, so it could be a fun game. There are a lot of variations to it, but due to its very nature and what you're doing, is inherently mathematical, and I dig that. And I think this is the first time I've like talked about a card game, um, on this channel. Well, talked about Yu-Gi-Oh before. I've talked about different Dragon Ball like card games, but I mean like pretty standard card game. More to come in the future for sure. I have a list. So, but like, it took me a while to get this started. In any case, I hope you enjoyed it. If you like spades, awesome. If you haven't really tried it, I recommend it. It can be really fun. In any case, I'll see you in the future.